So now we're going to move on to subtracting fractions. We're going to begin with subtracting fractions with like denominators. And there's 3 steps that we're going to take here. The first one is to subtract the numerators, keep the denominator, and simplify if possible. So let's go ahead and look at our first example. If we look, we have 7/8 minus 3/8. Again, all we're going to do is subtract our numerators. 7 minus 3 is 4. Keeping our same denominator is 8, and our third step to simplify if possible. Since I can divide both 4 and 8 by 4, I'm going to go ahead and simplify that fraction to 1/2. Okay, let's look at our second example with like denominators. We have 10/16 minus 4/16. So again, our first step, subtract those two numerators. 10 minus 4 is 6 over that same denominator, 16. And again, our third step is going to be to simplify. I can divide both 6 and 16 by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 16 divided by 2 is, no, it's not, it's 8. So therefore, we're going to have 3/8 as our simplified fraction. And our last example with like denominators is going to be 8/10 minus 3/10. Again, we're going to go ahead with that first step, subtracting our numerators. So I have 5, keeping that denominator is 10. And because we do need to simplify here, I can divide both my numerator and denominator by 5, and I end up with 1/2 as my simplified fraction. Now we're going to move on to fractions with different denominators. So it's going to be very similar to adding. We're going to follow 4 steps here. When we want to subtract denominators that are different, the first thing is to find the least common denominators of the fraction. The second, rewrite each fraction with the common denominator. Means we're going to multiply the numerator and denominators. And 3, subtract the numerators and keep the same denominator. Step 4 is to simplify if possible. So let's go ahead and look at our 2 examples here. So on example 1, I have 5/6 minus 7/12. We can see that our denominators are different, so we're going to go ahead and find a common denominator between 6 and 12, which most of us hopefully realize it's 12. So how did I get from 6 to 12? Well, I multiplied by 2. So I'm going to have to multiply that numerator by 2. 5 times 2 is 10. The 12 stays the same here, so I'm going to leave my numerator the same there for 7/12. And now that we have common denominators, we're just going to go ahead and subtract those numerators. 10 minus 7 is 3. Keeping that denominator is 12. And again, our last step is to always simplify, so I can divide both our numerator and denominator by 3. So I'm going to get 4. Oops, no, we're not. We're going to get 1. Let me scratch that out. 1/4 as our simplified fraction. All right. Let's look at our second example here. This one's going to be a little bit tricky because we have large denominators. So our first step is to find that least common denominator. Just like we did with our addition, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to list my multiples of both 24 and 15 because I really don't know what those are. So 24, we know, is going to be 24, 48, 72, 96, 120, and I'll add one more and get 144. For 15, we know it's going to be, I'm going to make a longer arrow, 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, 105, 120, and 135. Whoops. There we go. What we should notice about both of these is that they both share this 120. So we know our common denominator here is going to be 120. So how do I get from 24 to 120? It's my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th multiple. So I'm going to multiply it by 5. And so I have to multiply 17 by 5, which is going to give me 85. How did I get from 15 to 120? It's my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th multiple. So I have to multiply it by 8, and I have to multiply my numerator by 8. And that's going to give me 32. Now that I have that, I can go ahead and just subtract like normal. 85 minus 32 gives me 53. I'm going to keep my same denominator, which is 120, and 53 divided by 120 is going to be my final answer. I can't reduce that. Now I'm going to have you try some on your own. Take a moment to pause the video, write these down, try and solve them. Notice it's a mixture of addition and subtraction with like and different denominators. Take a moment and check to see if you got the same answers. If not, make sure you guys go back and look at either your multiplying or your addition and subtraction.